You did your homework? Did you send it up on the form? If you go to our website, there's a form. I've got to send it. I have emails actually now that I can send out with newsletters with the connections to the website and your accounts and everything. So I got to get that out to you guys tonight. But once you log into your account, there's a form actually on the website too. But there's a form once you log into the account, and let me show you the form on the website. Oh, what am I doing? It's been one of those days that you can access. It's the same form, it's just in a different place. And wow, the website is, I'll be glad when the new website is finally all done. I think it's in Gallery. But there is a form that you can send your stuff into if you click here. If you just go to Fun Stuff in Gallery, the form is right here. It'll let you attach the items to it, just different files. So you can send that in.
Okay.
And stuff. So, and that's also in that, Shirley, if you log into the user site, it's in there too.
Okay.
So, but that'll let you attach files. You just say select file, pick your file, and then it'll email and let me know that it's there and stuff. So, all right, so let's go back to generation. And we're going to look at how to, work with some of the little things that we create and not do anything like super heavy today, but, because it's summer and I want you guys to play and get comfortable with some of the other things. But let's go ahead and look at some of the images that we were playing with. And it always goes back to the last place that you were. And we were playing with these little tiny images here, and well, they weren't really tiny, they were kind of big. But this image, for example, has some little tiny flowers and leaves that we can kind of use for, the next thing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring it in, and I'm going to use it as a template. I almost never say simple artwork. And, you guys saw why last time. Yeah, you can, bam, there you go. You've got a design and get it done very quickly. But, for the most part, you can use the automation here to take care of the things that you want to get taken care of very quickly. And then, do the manual punching on the other. And manual punching is something that you really should learn to do. It's not hard. It's really just tracing over your image. That's all it is. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And the faded out background is nice, but I generally like the darker images, and then you can always fade it out or just turn it off using the plus makes it darker, the minus makes it lighter. You can adjust that as you go, or you can just come up here and you can, click on that and turn it off completely. Okay, so there's our image, and I want to use just this little flower right here, and we're going to turn it into something. And then we're going to, if we have enough time, we're going to look at using this bottom piece to turn it into something else and save these in the program. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, and I'm just working with this. And you remember last time, we made all these little pieces, right? And we connected them. We kind of cleaned those up because those were kind of gungy looking. So this time we're going to do, a little bit of logic on how we do things and try to eliminate some junk. And then we're going to turn it into a building block. And the building blocks, if you've ever played with those, are, if you're not turned on like mine, you go into your toolbar, you can turn on the building block bar. The building blocks are just little tiny pieces of things, right? And there's all different things in here, that you can adjust and you can tweak and you can edit. There's only a couple that are in here that you cannot edit. And the reason I know that is because I made every single one of these, and Bob made all these letters. So, they were made so that you could edit. Like this border, if I pull this up, let me zoom out so you can see it. This border is one big giant border, right? But I could come into any one of these pieces, and you can see they're not locked, right?
Okay.
And they're also grouped, and I can ungroup and just use, this part, or I could ungroup that and just use one piece of them, okay? So I'm going to go back and just undo there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and zoom back in and look at what we can do with this. Like this little flower could become a neat little quick border in a motif, but first we have to make it. So, you know, some of this, if we make this smaller, would just be kind of overwhelming. But, you know, we could maybe ignore this, or we could use these in a different way and then use these in a different way too. So we're going to start off, we'll make, you know, this little purple piece here. And since that's real basic, you know, I'm just going to take the magic wand and click on that purple, see if it's, you know, doing everything I want it to do. If not, you know, I can adjust it a little bit to see if it'll pick up a little more. And right now it looks pretty good. So I'm going to say, yep, okay, that's good. We'll pick that one. That one's good. And generally, once I've got the tolerance set, like if I pick this blue section next on this magic wand, once I've got the tolerance set, like, you know how I adjusted up here, it generally is good for the entire image. But you remember, like, you know, if I had these little holes here for the blue pieces, and I don't want them to be there, which I wouldn't, I could always come in here and say, you know, take the noise slider all the way up, and it closes up those holes. Here's it with it all the way back. See those holes? If I take it up here, I close it, and I can create that section very quickly. Okay? So this is what I've got quickly so far. And I'm going to delete the blue piece because it wouldn't be the one I would, you know, do next. I just wanted to show you something. So I can delete this a couple of ways. If it's flashing with these little outlines, I have to hold Control and Delete to get rid of it. Or I could just left click on it, but you want to make sure you don't click on your image, and click on that piece and just delete it, and it's gone. And the reason I know it's gone is there are no flashing lines on the screen, and there's nothing over here. Okay, so let's work on these little pieces first. You know, they're going to be smaller, so I don't want to put a whole lot of detail into them, but you know, I might want to make them a little flashier than just plain little purple petals. And I can do that because, you know, if I right click, I come down here, and remember they're auto judge, right? Well, you want to change things off of auto judge. And the reason is when we shrink these down, auto judge is going to adjust it to whatever it wants it to be. So I'm going to go into my property setting, which is this icon here, or I can press the space bar to open my property settings. And here they are. Here's auto judge, that's complex, and there's satin. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's make this satin, and you know, let's look at the satin tab, and I want to put a fill in it, and I'm going to leave it as just the regular pattern. I don't want to enable auto convert. That is something that adjusts like the width, okay? I don't want to enable that. I don't need to. My maximum step means nothing. It's not going to go that long. The density is fine. My minimum step is fine. And, you know, that looks pretty good, but let's go to the underlay. It's got a zigzag underlay. Let's give it an edge underlay. Let's click on the edge over here and move it up. That should stitch first. This should stitch second. However, we're going to check that because I believe there's still the glitch in the program which moves these back into their original position. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And, you know, there's my new settings. And we're going to adjust this a little bit further, but let's go back and look at this because remember I told you I wanted to check that underlay. Ah, it kept it. Woo-woo. Okay. So what happens is this underlay here is going to stitch first. This is going to stitch second. If I want to get rid of something, I just select the underlay I want to get rid of, and I click on the arrow to move it to available. If I want to add something, I click on the underlay I want, and I click on the arrow to move it to selected. Okay? These are the settings for your underlay. I can change anything I want here, but I'm going to leave these defaults. They're usually pretty good, and I'm just going to leave them as they are. So we'll just go ahead and say, okay, now we've got this petal done, and we're going to make some adjustments. So what mode do I need to go into if I want to adjust the direction of these stitches? Do you guys remember? I'm going to go to the red elbow up here, the view angle. Okay, this green one is view outline.
Okay.
That's going to let me adjust the outline around here. A view angle is going to let me come in here and see how these little green lines are on these little nodes. It's going to let me move these around so that I can, you know, adjust them. If I wait till I get that little star cursor and click on it, it selects that line, right? You can see what's going on down here. I'm going to use one of the tools up here, the zoom tool. This is zoom selected. So it zooms in real close to this, and we'll adjust this later because we want a little cleaner arc there too, right? But right now, you know, if I just click on these and start to move them so that they kind of have a little better flow to them, then I'm going to get a different appearance on the stitching on this. Okay, so I've moved those around, and now I'm going to generate. You can see the difference in the appearance, right? Now, remember I told you we're going to smooth those out a little bit, so we are. We're going to go, and we're going to go to View Outline. And remember, if I right-click, I can get to, you know, adjust with an arc or adjust with new points. And I'm going to pick new points, and I'm going to adjust this from here to here. And this is the segment I want to adjust. See how it highlights? So I'm going to click on that, and it attaches, right? And then I'm going to smooth this by just right-clicking and putting in these new points. And I can even come up to about here to smooth that out. When I'm done adjusting, just hit Enter. See how much smoother that is? And this segment right here, you know, it needs a little smoothing too, so we can do that. We'll adjust from here to here. And, you know, all I need to do is just really just follow the line a little bit more. If I want to arc it out a little bit more, maybe come out just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Enter. Okay, so now I've got, you know, I might tweak that a little bit. Let me zoom out a little. Okay, but that's a little smoother. If I want to tweak it, I just come in here and say Edit. You know, just pull these out a little and arc them. And then this point down here, I want to go ahead and just pull that to an actual point. And if I've got an extra node there, I generally select it and delete it just to clean it up. Okay, so now what I've got is, let me zoom out a little, is this nice kind of smooth top. You know, I don't really like all these little nodes in here. If that happens when you adjust, just come in here and delete some of them because really, you know, there's no need for them, and, you know, they kind of get in your way when you go to edit. So I usually just kind of clean those up. All right, so there's our reshape, and I generate. And you see I've got that nice point there. It's a little smoother here, and I might want to double check my direction. See how my direction's funky there? So, and that's easy enough to do. I just move this point now and get that, you know, to be a little less severe there. I can also right-click, and I can add a stitch direction guideline from here to here, and that'll give it a little more flow, too. Maybe I can, huh? Okay, there we go. So, and then, you know, if I need to adjust that once the line, just, you know, just give it a little nudge. And that'll give that a little more flow to the area. I can even move this down if I want to, but, you know, generally, you know, having it in that point's not a bad deal. All right, so let's generate. And here is our petal. Okay, now I am going to zoom all the way out. Okay, so there's my petal. It is a little more different now than this one, right? So I'm just going to delete that one. And since I don't like to work twice as hard, I'm just going to select this one. I'm going to go up to the copy, paste. Okay, so now I've got two of them. And then I'm going to use the vertical mirror here. And just flip it and use the arrows on your keyboard and just move it over into place. And I don't worry about the in and out points because the minute I click off to the side and nothing is selected, see the little scissors right here? The minute I generate the whole design again, the program is going to recalculate, maybe, Hold on. For whatever reason, the program does not want to generate. I don't know if it's because I'm in, not sure why it's not regenerating. Let me double check. It might be because they're not touching, and there's a little cut there, but okay, let's regenerate and see what happens. All right, so I'm just going to check the in and out points. Okay, there's my out point. There's my in and out point, right? I could move this in point and just remove the scissors because I know that there's really not a jump there, right? All right, so I'm going to go back out to this version or to the full version into 3D and generate. And if I want to, I can come back in here on this side and adjust those positions too, all right? Because, you know, that's a little bit different now than this. So I can come in here and I can make the adjustments to make that stitch a little differently as well. And, you know, I might even want to bring these all the way up here.
Why didn't they stay the same?
Because if you look at the pattern's going, you know, there's a little stripe to the pattern, right? So that stripe just continued, you know, it did continue the way it was supposed to. You know, it just, when it's flipped, you know, the opposite doesn't always display the way the other one does. Now, would I notice this when it's stitched? Probably not. So, all right, so this is what we've got so far. The next piece that I would do, the next pieces would be this fuchsia piece. But since this is going to be very small, I don't really need all of this stuff in here. So what I could do is just ignore the fuchsia color completely. And I could do something right here that would not require jump stitches or running stitches. Because remember, we're going to make this a building block, right? So I'm just going to come over here and use this little satin side-to-side tool. Okay, see, create satin side-to-side. And this works like a zigzag stitch. So I would place, you know, I generally work inside, outside, inside, outside. So there's my inside point, there's my outside point, inside, and I'm right-clicking to make the curve, right? Inside, inside, see? Inside, or sorry, inside, outside. And, you know, there's my little satin section, and I hit enter. Okay, and then I've got these little pieces up here, so I'm going to hit escape to turn off that tool. This is, you know, the new little satin section. I would adjust it as needed. It's a little fatter in one section. When it's small enough, you won't notice, but, you know, you could come in here and say, oh, you know what, I made that a little beefier than what I wanted to, so I could move these nodes in. And this did not go to auto-judge. If you look, it's not auto-judge because I manually created it, okay? So there we go. I'm going to take this and turn it pink because that's the color it's supposed to be. And then I've got these little pink things up here. Now, what I could do is this. I'm going to zoom in. I could do something very, very simple. I could take, you know, my little circle tool, and I'm just going to make a little circle. And I'm going to leave it blue for right now. I'm going to move it here, and I'll put it right on top of that, like that, right? And then I'm just going to copy, paste, move it. Copy, paste, and just move, you know, keep moving those over and kind of leave them touching, okay? And, you know, if you've got 3 of them, you know, it's just as easy just to copy. You can just continue to just paste one of them since you're moving them all anyway. You could paste more than one at a time if you wanted to, and then just mirror them. But I find it, you know, it's just as much work to reorder them as it is to just paste them individually and move them. Okay, so there's all my little dots in place, right? And I've kind of moved them so they're a little bit different. But I'm going to take all of these dots, and I'm going to select them because they're still in blue, and I'm going to pull the color up above the pink. And then I'm going to right-click on the pink. So they're all pink now, right? Let me turn off the image. You actually can just fade it out. Okay, so they're all pink now, and they look like a big, giant, bumbled kind of mess right now. But click on that pink chip, and because we manually punched, I'm going to right-click on them, one of the shaded cells with that pink color chip selected. Right-click and go to Properties, and just removed the user-defined in and out point. And the reason that shows up as user-defined is this. When I do manual punching in this program for lines and satin stitching, it assumes I have started where I want to start and ended where I want to end. So it puts it as a user-defined setting, okay? So if I remove the, if I left it like that, let's go back and let me show you what would happen. Okay, if I just left it the way it was, right? I have to go back one more. Nope, okay. If I just left it the way it was, let me zoom in on that again. What's going to happen is watch over here. I should have like no jumps, right? Let's generate. And you can see I've got like these little jumps up in here, right? And, they're still showing where they didn't show when I did it the other way. But because I left that as user-defined, it won't override the settings. So always click on that and double-check, right-click, click on the color chip or click on the cell you want and go to Properties and remove those settings. And then right-click off to the side and regenerate. And it still did it, but let me go back to where we were because it did it right the first time. And Properties. Okay, let's see if it does it right. Worst case, I will move my in and out points on this so that they do stitch correctly. But it actually did it right the first time where it moved them, down below the stitching. Whoops, did not want to do that. And that little green wand that you see is my direction wand on these, so I could change these very quickly. Okay, so there's my in and out points are all moved. Let's regenerate and see if we can hide those underneath. And I might adjust a little bit, but you kind of get the gist of where I'm going, right? Let me go in here. Worst case, I have to pull these down a little bit further. So I probably didn't place all of them. You can see the outline. As a matter of fact, the easier way to see this is right here. There's my outline. Just make sure that they're all overlapping, right? So they're sunk down in there a little bit, and that'll hide all those travel stitches. All right, so there's our first little segment. It's kind of neat. We've got all these little pieces that we might want to keep together. So I'm going to, undo. And I'm just going to kind of left-click and drag around, and we'll just group these. And that way, I won't bump anything out of place, and I can always ungroup it. But when I group it, I've also grouped the image. Okay? So now we're moving on to the next section. Let me zoom back in, and I'm going to make this a little bit darker again, which I can't do unless I ungroup, so I'm going to leave it. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to ignore this because we're going to make this small. So I'm going to ignore that fuchsia section altogether and just have the pink section. Now I've got to deal with this blue section. And, I could quickly, pick this, use the magic wand, pick that blue section, close off the holes and say, boom, there you go, and you're done, right? But then I'd have to split it and edit and everything else. So I'm just going to cancel, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use just my regular Create Freehand Area tool. Because one of the advantages of this program over some of the others are that I can create these shapes and then turn them into a satin area. And sometimes, like this was quick enough to do with this little side-to-side. If you are not comfortable with satin stitching, you can use this and just outline the area. Like for this, I might want to come up like this and, create these nice little smooth curves. And I'm right-clicking to make the curve, left-clicking to make a point, right? So I might want to come up here and do something like this. And I'm just going to enter to close it. Okay, so I've got, you know, one section done, and I'm going to escape. Go into my settings because it's on auto judge, and I don't want it to be auto judge. I want it to be satin again. And let's go ahead and pick a different pattern. And let's see, maybe we can do, let's see what this looks like. It's a little bit different pattern. Or, you know what, I could just say use a random stitch length and apply it. And I'm just going to select a little different pattern. So we'll select this and use a random stitch length. My maximum step I'm going to take down to like, or 6 and apply it. Okay, so I've got a little different fill there, right? And I'm going to say okay. Now that's now a satin area. That's what I've defined it as. If I'm not happy with that, I can just click on this and go back to anything I want. You know, like for example, you know, I might think, oh, you know, maybe this would be really cool as, you know, kind of a radial fill or, you know, an arc fill. Maybe an arc fill would be really cool on this, right? See the dimension? So now I'm going to change the color just A so you can see it a little bit better. And B, you know, because that's the color it needs to be, right? So, you know, an arc fill is an interesting thing. See this little dot? If I put it right here, you know, it's going to kind of create a mess. Wherever this dot is, that's where the fill is trying to arc to. If I put the arc up here, you know, I get a little different texture altogether. If I go into the arc settings, right, you know, use smooth edge. It's going to create a bunch of little stitches on the edge, but it gives it a nice clean point. If I select a different pattern, like generally I like to select the smaller patterns with this fill because you can see they kind of get pulled out of shape, right? And you also can change your maximum step. 4 is generally a pretty good number, and that's going to give this a little different twist. If you don't like that, or if you pulled that, you know, and arced it quite a bit, you know, you can look at doing 3, and then always go to the basic tab and change that as well. And you can see when I shorten that stitch length, I get a little cleaner effect, right? But what you want to watch with this arc stitch is if you do put it too close, you're going to get a mess. You'll have a mess in here. You know, you can see the stitches are kind of pulling funny. So you don't want to put that arc right on top. And if you put it dead center, nothing happens. So, you know, play with this arc. It doesn't always go where you think it's going to go, and closer is not always better. Okay, so what I've got right now is this. Let's change that to a little darker blue. Okay, so that's looking not too bad. We've got a little texture thing going on in there, right? Okay, so because I don't like to work, you know, twice as hard, and this is just a duplicate, I'm going to say, you know, copy, paste, flip me, and move it over. And even if there's that little overlap there, you know, that's fine. You know, you kind of want that little, you know, leafy or overlap effect anyway. As a matter of fact, even if you move this, I'll probably pull that one further out. You have to kind of play with that to get it where you want it and what you like. You know, I'll have a little different texture on top here. Okay. And I did put smooth edges. I could take that off, but, you know, do a little stitch out and see what you think, because it does put, like, to give you an example, this little piece that we just did has 392 stitches according to that, right? If I go into my settings and I say, you know, let's not use the smooth edge, okay? So 392 stitches, I took the smooth edge off and I hit apply. We got up to 435. Why? I am not really sure. It should have removed it, because what the smooth edge does in theory, I'm laughing because I'm just shocked, right? What the smooth edge does in theory is create these little edge stitches, but it doesn't seem to be doing it. It only does it in part of it. So, you know, I'm not quite sure why I didn't do it that way. So I'm going to go back into this one and take the smooth edge off as well until I have time to play with it. All right, so there we go. So we've got our flower. It's looking pretty good. If you don't like that arc fill, you can always just change it back to a satin and put a little fill in it. Or if you make this small enough, you could turn it into a satin. So now we've got this edge around there. And I'm going to left click on this and ungroup so I can darken up this image a little bit. Okay, so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, so what's in there now is I've got this little edge around there, and I still have those little pieces that are underneath this, and we'll get to those in a minute. But I've got this edge. So, now, I'm looking at this edge, and I could satin stitch it, or, I could come in here and I could use this tool too. If you are really uncomfortable with satin stitching, you can use this tool and just trace around it like this, right? Instead of going side to side until you're comfortable with the satin stitch tool, you can do this. A little more work sometimes because you might have to come in and make some changes to, the stitch direction. But, sometimes it's a little easier to feel like you have a little more control when you're not comfortable with the tool. And I'm going to overlap, even though I put compensation on this, I generally like to have a little overlap. And I'm just going to come back down and hit enter. Let me put a point there and hit enter to close it. You can adjust that. But, wow, I went really like Bazumba over there, huh?
Yes.
So, I'm much better with the satin tool, can you tell? Anyway, you all know how to adjust that, right? Go into your tools, and you can just come in here. I really did go like crazy there, huh? All right, well, unbazumba this real quickly. Okay, let's see if that's better. And, I would adjust, but, right now we're on auto judge. And remember what I told you, you don't ever want to stay on auto judge, right? So, come in here and say satin. I forgot what color that was supposed to be. Hold on. I think it was just a different blue, right? But since it's our design, we can do whatever we want to. And let's see what color we could possibly make it. Let's make it, we'll make it a happy green. Looks good in happy green, right? And I would still make some adjustments, but, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you have less control in these corners, especially when you use that tool, right? But you can't do it that way. Now, if you use this satin tool, you have a whole lot more control. 2 points close together, and, you're just going back and forth. But when you get to corners, you have absolute control. See that angle I just put in there? And then I can come back out here and I can control the direction that this is going to stitch. And if I make a mistake, I just backspace and go over it. Oh, you know why that was, I did follow that. Okay, so it's just going to be a little more bazumba on the other side than the one side, I guess. Or we can adjust it as we go here. But what's nice is even coming up into here, right, I have more control over these corners and how they stitch using the satin tool. So, practice. I mean, you do have the option of the other tool, but I would, definitely practice using the satin stitch tool. And we didn't get that perfect, but that's close enough. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave this as is. I would adjust, mainly in here just to smooth it. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it as it is and turn it into that happy green again. And then I'm just going to escape to get out of that tool and go into my property settings. And from here, just check what you want to do. Do you want that to be satin? Do you want it to be a fill? It's going to be up to you at this point. I'm going to go ahead and put a fill in it just in case. But, so there we go. So this is what we have. We have a little flower that we've created. And it needs a little editing, but no big deal. We're just kind of playing, right? And now what we need to do is we need to get to those little pieces that were underneath. So over here, on your film strip, just click on the little eye next to those two blue pieces and go out of 3D. And there's those little blue pieces, right? Now you can zoom in and use whichever tool you're comfortable with. This one I'm more comfortable with because I know I can just do 2 close points and really just kind of come down here and put a couple of curve points here and here, and then come back and hit those 2 close points. And, and those are pretty quick and easy to do. And even better, once you get one of them done, right? By the way, if you're in flashing, you can still use your copy and paste. But once you get one done, then you can just move it over to where you want to move it. And I aligned that point with the bottom. Click on that see this little pivot point right here? Press and hold your left mouse button, drag it into, position on that point, and then come up and wait for that little green curvy arrow and just move it into position. And the same thing, copy, paste, drag it over, put that point where you want that point to be on the bottom, and then click on that a second time, you'll get your curve, and there's your pivot point. Move it to the bottom, wait for the green arrow up here, and drag it into position. Oh, I guess that was supposed to be darker or lighter purple. I guess we could change that back. And, okay, so we've got these 3 green pieces, or these pieces at the end, right? And we're going to go ahead and change them to a darker blue. Of course, you could put any color you wanted, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the darker blue. And I'm going to go to 101, right-click, and come over to those 2 other pieces and just unhide them. Just click on the eyeball next to them and turn that little red X off. And what you've got is a little tiny design. So let me get rid of the background image. Okay, so I've got this little teeny tiny design. If I left click and drag around, you see I've got all these little pieces, right? Instead of having all those pieces, come down here and group them. Okay, so now they're all grouped, and you can resize this. Any size you want and generate. It'll recalculate your stitches. You can make it bigger or smaller, whichever one you want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make it smaller. So now I've got this little thing, and I'm going to turn it into a building block. And to do that, I'm just going to come up to Accessories, Building Block, Save Building Block. And then it's going to say, well, where do you want to save it? So I could say, I want to save it in Floral. I want to save in My Blocks. And, give it a file name. Little Flower 1, right? Okay, so now in My Blocks, there's my little flower. So now this becomes something I can drag and drop onto the screen. I can select. And I can, right-click and mirror this. And I can do all kinds of neat things with this, right?
Bernie,
Huh?
you said you can enlarge it or you can shrink it down. Does that do anything to the density?
When I put it into a building block, right? Like if I look at these right now, I'm just going to delete a couple here. Okay, see how many stitches are in there? It's like a stitch count of 4678, right?
Right.
So if I come in here and I select both of them and make them bigger, well, I might want to pull them apart, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
But, okay, so now there's still the same stitch count, So I just click off to the side, make sure nothing is selected, and hit generate. And now you can see my stitch count has increased.
Is that for both of them or one of them?
That's for both of them. But they're also giant. If you look at how big they are, they're pretty giant, right? But that's the beauty of making your own building blocks. They're like Motifs, Shirley, in the Digitizer program.
Okay.
But the beauty of it is, in this program, you can do the same thing in Digitizer. You can resize them and it'll adjust. But in Digitizer, you know, it's a little bit harder to move things around, like the color sections around, right?
Right.
Where in this program, let me go ahead and get rid of this one, and we'll just... Okay, so there's all of my pieces, right? If I double-click on the purples, see all the purples select? If I double-click on the pink, so I can quickly double-click on this, right-click, move to top. All the purples now together, right?
Okay.
Generally, what I do is I move that first one to the top, double-click on the last color, right? And see how that all selects it?
Uh-huh.
Move to the bottom, okay? Or come up to this pink, double-click on that pink, move to bottom, double-click on the blue, move to bottom, double-click on the green, move to bottom, double-click on that last color, and move to bottom. And then just generate, see all the little stitches running all over the place?
Yes.
Generate. And I'll still have some, whoops, I didn't want to do that, hold on. Took out my color stop. You know, I'm still going to have some jumps, right? I mean, you know, the things aren't touching, but at least all the colors are quickly color sorted.
Okay.
And so, you know, when you make your own motif, you know what's going on. Or when you make your own building blocks, you know exactly what's going on with those, right? Now, let's get rid of all of these pieces. I can also make my own motifs. If I have something like this and I go to accessories motif, see the save motif is not even selected. And the reason is motifs cannot be, I think it's different colors. So I'm going to select all of this, and we're just going to make this, a pink flower, right? Let me right-click and drag this around there, turn it all pink. Okay, so now it's all pink, right? Everything's just going to kind of readjust, and now I've got this, and I'm going to go and say accessories, motif, and it still won't let me do it. It has to be one piece is what it is. And I don't think, see, there's trims between these. Okay. It has to be one piece is what I think it is. Let's do this. Accessories, motif. Let's open a motif. And I believe they're all one piece is what it is. Let me get rid of this. See, those are all locked, but they're pretty much like all one piece is how that goes. So, okay. So when I make a motif, like I can open this motif and I can unlock these and I can edit this, right?
Right.
But when I make my own motifs, they have to be one piece. It's actually a run line. Okay. See what it says it is. Yeah, see, this is what happens. Like, when I open a motif, I might be able to edit it, but because of the way this motif was made, I can't. So, the building blocks are a little more flexible than these motifs. The motifs are really more for fills, although I can get in and edit some of them, but it depends on what tool they were made with. But I could do something like this, too. I could, left-click and drag this into the screen and drop it, and then I can come over here and I can say, I kind of like this butterfly. And I can combine these motifs as well, right? And you can say, well, that's kind of a puny flower compared to the butterflies and make it bigger. So you can play with these motifs, but what I found was like if I created a motif that I was going to use repetitively, then it saved me a lot of time, like on the seasonal motif. You know, this little motif right here is great if you're doing Christmas trees or you're doing like pine boughs, right?
Yes.
Where, you know, having to punch those all over and over and over would have driven me out of my mind. And if I make a mistake, I can always escape and just pull the motif into position. So the building blocks, you know, they really are more for, you know, something that you're going to use over and over. Like if you make like a label that you're going to want to reproduce over and over and over, or a patch, or, you know, something that, you know, you generally aren't going to edit too much. You might resize, but, you know, those are things that are good things for building blocks. Like the buttonholes here, it used to be that, you know, there were a lot of designs that had the decorative buttonholes. So you could come up here and you could select, you know, this and then space out your buttonholes, right? And then put the decorations around them without having to duplicate the buttonholes over and over. Okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Very good.
Now, you can make a whole set of building blocks, but to me, the building blocks truly are for quick little things. Like this would be a quick little design, right? And, you know, if you want to make something quick, like for a book cover or something, you can always duplicate that. You can, you know, use these and flip it around, right? You can also left click on it again and rotate it. And, or, you know, or you could resize these. And then come in here and change the colors. You know, like this is that flower, right? So you know that this would be one of the other flowers. And, you know, hey, why not go for that, you know, 60s theme and go neon, right? So you could always come in and you could change whatever you want on these and create whatever you wanted. You know what I think?
Pull them two apart.
You can tear these all apart as well. So see all those little pieces? Because building blocks are made in the program and they're made with actual pieces, right? You could come in here and you could say, okay, now left click, see it's grouped, ungroup it, and see there's every little piece right here. You could say, you know what, I like this piece, and I like this piece, and this piece, and this piece, and this piece. And hey, let's go orange. So you could do really anything you wanted with these. And that's kind of the beauty of the building block. Motifs are different. And we'll work on making motifs, you know, probably next time in the program, because the motifs, if you don't make them the right way, you end up with a stitched mess. You just have way too many stitches in a motif. And, well, I could take just about anything and turn it into motifs. Like I could come over here and I could do, you know, this and, you know, draw the little squiggly thing, right? And let's just, hold on, let me go ahead and I'll just leave it at its default and enter. Okay, so now I've got this little squiggly thing, this one piece, right? So I could, you know, say, okay, you know, let's go to accessories, motif, save that motif. And I could give it a file name, like, you know, testing. Okay, so there's my motif, right? Well, when I go to apply that motif to something, just because it's at this size does not mean that that's the size that the motif is going to see this at, right? So let's go in here and we'll say, you know what, let's use motif fill. And let's go to our motif, and let's go down and find that testing that we did, preview it, and say okay. And see the difference between what I made and what size it's actually going to be. So, when you do the motif,
Look at the stitch count.
oh yeah, I mean it's insane. That's why I said if you don't make a motif correctly, or you don't make a note so you know that you cannot possibly stitch that, it would just be stitch upon stitch upon stitch upon stitch, right? And let me see, I don't even know if you could actually see them here. See all those little teeny tiny stitches? And we're zoomed in at 1,500%, okay? So, there's just no way, right? But you can see how many stitches are in this. So, we'll play with the motifs a little bit more next time because there's a way to make really, really good motifs. And what's nice about this program is that
dying to know.
it's really much easier than everybody thinks. But in order to make a good motif, there's really just one tool that you use. So the difference between the building blocks and the motifs are these make quick little designs. I guess we'll just grab, let me see where we are. I forget what all is in here sometimes. These make quick little designs, right? And, and you can color sort them so they all kind of stitch in some logic. But they are not fills, and they're not going to be able to be applied to a line necessarily. But, there's a way to do it. There's a way to apply them to a line. It's just not, you're not going to make a line and do it like a motif would be done. But they adjust their density automatically. They stay at the size you created them at. So if you, for example, took one of these and said, oh, I really like it that size, and, did some kind of changes to it, and then came in and said, you know what, let's save this as a building block. We're going to save it to my blocks, and it's going to be called Test 2. And so when I go to my blocks, right, there's my Test 2, and it's saved at the size I made it at, right? Motifs, as you saw, do not do that. However, these building blocks give me an option. Like a motif, I can make a circle, and I can put them on a line, and I can make a motif line. But these building blocks kind of give me an option that's kind of neat using one of the other tools. Oh, wait, I didn't want to use the big giant one. Hold on. Let me get back to the regular ones. And we'll use this. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this. And I'm just going to make one of them for right now. But I'm going to copy and paste this. So I've got a bunch of these now, right? And we'll just kind of pull them in order over to the side. And I don't even really have to be real careful about this because I can use the aligning tools and adjust. Let me see how many more I have. Oh, that was it. Okay, so now I've got all these pieces. I can use a tool in the program, just left click around and select them all. And I can say, you know what, let's align the bottoms. And let's kind of space these out based on, their horizontal centers. Oh, sorry, over here, horizontal space. Okay, so now they're all spaced evenly, right? So this will be my align bar, and that's the, spacing. So now I've got them all spaced. And see this little funky T icon here? It's called Super Align Object. If I click on that, it lets me align these little pieces in different ways, along a line, along an arc, along an ellipse, or in a freehand. I can center them on the line, or I can put them below the line, which controls spacing and placement sometimes. So let's go ahead and let's do an ellipse. And I say, okay, and I begin to draw my circle or ellipse. And boom, they're just aligned. It behaves really like your lettering. I can adjust the size, and I can space that out to what I need. These little nodes right here allow me to move them individually if I need to adjust, like for freehand, kind of like lettering, right? And this lets me adjust the size of the motif, the height of it. This, you know, adjusts the actual arc of it. And if I don't like any of that, I can say, you know what, edit, and hey, let's put this below the line or centered on the line, right? Or you know what, current eclipse, and I did something that I don't understand. Let's go back and do another eclipse. Okay, so I can always go back and edit. I'm going to cancel because I kind of like that. Now, I've made all these adjustments, and I want to generate. So, you know, now I could actually save this, except I need a colorful. Remember, you know, right-click, double right-click, move to top, you know, and since it's only 2 colors, I generate, it'll adjust that. And I'll have jumps, but that's okay, you know. At least it's going to sew in some order.
Got a lap at 3 o'clock.
I was?
Got a lap at 3 o'clock. A lap. It's overlapping. Overlap.
Oh, right
3
here.
o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, I can just come in here.
No,
and
down.
go like this. Yeah, I see it right
Yeah.
here. So I can just come adjust these, you know, and move them around. That's because I was playing with the shape of the eclipse. But, you know, that's what these are for. They're like lettering turning spaces.
Good.
And, you know, so, you know, once you've got that how you want it, I probably would move that a little bit, then you can do a couple things with this. A, you can save this as a motif, or not a motif, I'm sorry. You can save this as, you know, one of your building blocks, right? And, you know, you just select it. You can select it like this and go into accessories, building block, save as building block, you know, motif. You can see you still can save it, stamp pattern. I could save it as a stamp pattern. It would be a little more complicated, and we'll talk about that later. Or I could save it as a background for monogramming. Okay. So if I say, you know what, I want to save this as a monogram, I could go in and say, let me see. I think they give me the option of my monograms now. You know what? If not, then I can just say, you know what, let's put a circular one, and I'm going to give it a name, right? Okay, so it's a monogram frame, and I can still say, you know what, let's save this as a building block, and it's going to go into my block, and okay, so now I've got it a couple of places, so I can do different things with this, right? So let me go ahead and open a new file. Now I can go into the monogramming, and I can say, you know what, let me find the circular one I just did. There's my sweet frame, right? And, you know, it's really set up for kind of a one letter deal, right? And, you know, so there's this. Let's generate. I would probably pick a little more floral, you know, thing. But what color do you want this to be? Yeah, you know, I'm going to make it that color. So, and there's the monogram, or there's the, you know, monogram frame, right? Or I can now come down here into my block, and I can say, you know what, this is just going to look so nice as a border. And I can put this any way I want. And, you know, I can come down here. I overlapped that a little bit too much, but I could come down here and say, you know, and make anything I wanted out of this. And just press escape when you're done. And you can kind of do whatever you want with this. You know, you could turn it into one color, it'd be a pretty snowflake, and resize this.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got a lot of different options, you know, just from one little basic frame. I could also make this smaller automatically and save it, right? Just left click on it. It's not going to affect anything but the size. And save that as the building block as well. The difference between a building block and this frame is this. I can still, I'm just going to kind of grab his circular frame here. I can still come in here, you know, and if you haven't played much with this, you know, you still can come in here and get Oh, I don't think I like that one. You can still come in here and get your true type fonts. And I have some very odd ones. And I never remember what they are. We'll go with that one just for the sake of saving it, right? My caps lock must be on. Okay. So I can still go in here and I can, still resize, the whole design. But this is now, grouped together, right? I can come over here and I can change the color. But if I really want to make some adjustments, if I scale this, it's all going to change at once. Unless I come down here and ungroup it, then I can change anything I want. Here's my letter. I can go in and edit and pick a different letter. And sometimes it's easier to go down through here and see what it looks like, right? Oh, that one's kind of interesting. And we'll make it bold. Regenerate. And then I have a little more control, I can just resize the letter if I want to, or I can resize the frame, or I can, select the frame and stretch it out and put like 3 monograms in there. You know what I mean? So those are, some of the differences. I could also just not bother to put a monogram in and just come up with a frame, but I have a little more flexibility with, multiple placement, of course, with building blocks. So you guys have any questions so far?
I was under the impression that building blocks were very small elements, but size has nothing to do with it, right?
No, building blocks are generally they're saved. Like when we made them in the program, we saved them small because they take up a lot of space, right?
Okay.
But you can make them in any size that you want.
Okay.
And save it. Like if you're doing something repetitively, save it at the size you're going to do it at. And
so
then, I'm sorry?
Let's say you were going to do something like landscape quilt or something and put embroidered elements on. So let's say you made some trees, and you could just save those big trees no matter how big they were and just pick that tree and use it in other quilts.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, if you can actually take, like if you have a design that you bring in, right, and you're going to use it over and over, you can save it as a building block too. It won't make it any more editable. Like if you bring in a Jeff file or a Pez file, right?
Okay.
It'll still be a Pez file. I'm trying to find one that I knew I did wrong. This is the one that I did wrong. Okay. And you can see they're all locked. And when I resize it, see my stitch count is 1604.
Okay.
It says some of the objects are locked. I'm going to say yes. My stitch count is still 1604.
Okay.
When I generate, it's still 1604. And if I unlock these, then, it doesn't know what to do with them because they're not a fill type. I could come in here and say, oh, yeah, satin, but then all of that disappears.
Okay.
Okay, so, if you're using something, even a design file from somebody else that you're using constantly, instead of importing it, going up the file, import it once and save it in your building block.
Okay.
And, and that way, you have it. It won't make it editable, but, you can see at least I can bring it in, right? And no, I don't want to save that baby. Let's delete this. Yes. So, but, that it'll just behave like this one, where it is the size that it is and stuff. So, and where if you make your own, though, it behaves like these. See my stitch counts for, 559.
Right.
I come and, stretch this out. Maybe. And then regenerate, and I'm going to have a significantly larger stitch count.
Okay.
And stuff. So, that's the difference between one that you made and one that you put in as another format. So, but building blocks are kind of an interesting little thing because you can combine them into like a little scene, or, you can combine the elements, or you can just use them individually, or you know, you can come in and you can, there's the basing blocks, but I'm trying to find one. Like, I'll just grab one of these cameos. You know, there's a little cameo, right? If I wanted to do something funky with it, I could come down here and say, okay, I'm going to reshape that poor little cameo. I used to refer to this as torture the butterfly routine because we used to pick the butterfly, but these are reshape or envelope things. A lot of times you use them in lettering, but you can use them with anything in generations. I'm going to zoom in on this and zoom out a little bit, I guess. But see the points there? Let me escape so I can show it to you better. When I go into reshape and I pick this, each one of these has its own unique little thing, right? But, you know, here's these little points. I can begin to really twist this poor little head around, right? I can even overlap and say generate. And why did you not generate? I didn't hit enter, sorry. That is my fault. We'll just pick a simpler shape. Okay. So you can see the outline of what she's going to look like, but I can also overlap her and it's when I hit enter, it should say enter down here and it doesn't. It says, hey, wait a minute, your outline is self-processed, may cause unexpected results. Just say yes if you want to see the unexpected results, right?
That one looks like torture.
But it's fun to do with, you know, like when I say we used to do torture the butterfly, literally we used to pick that one butterfly that was in that comes in your standard images and auto-generate him and then twist him around. But he was great to do because it gave you an idea. Like you could make him look like he was flying. You could just simply torture him and twist him all over the place. It's similar to the art font, but it gives you a whole different, you know, whole new ball game. Like, let's just make, I'm going to make like a long rectangle, okay? Just standard little rectangle, right? Escape out of your tool, and then just left click on it and go into reshape. And this really simple little, you know, rectangle can quickly become like a little ribbon. You know, I can take this into a point. You zoom out a little bit. I can, you know, take this point and straighten it up. I can take these middle points and twist them around. And, you know, if I want to make this like arc in here, and then say enter, yes, and generate, you can see what I can do with this very simple thing. It looks like a ribbon.
Now, just because that dialogue box came up and said you were crossing, this is an effect you want because you want it to look like a ribbon?
Right, I want it to look like a ribbon. Like, and what it's doing is it's crossing right here. You can see it, right?
Will that create a problem when it's stitching out?
If it's real dense, it would. On this, you know, there's not enough of an overlap. If you're worried about it, do a small test stitch. Worst case, you know, just click on it and adjust your density a little bit, right? And I'm going to say it's a complex fill. You could actually do this too. Once I change it to a complex fill from Auto Judge, see that whole thing changes? The overlap is gone. If I change to satin, the overlap is gone. So once you overlap it, but be careful because sometimes overlapping, it like when I overlapped and I went and I changed it from autofill to complex,
Right.
it was fine. I've now lost this overlap right here, okay? But sometimes you lose the detail that you wanted, okay? Like if we go back to, let's go back to our, let's go forward one. Okay, if we really look at this reshape, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a whole lot of dimension in here. It's going to be really interesting, and it shouldn't be too heavy, but I could always come in here or even down here and say, you know, I'm a little worried about that. So, hey, let's make this, you know, density of 50. And you leave it at, you know, any change actually kind of loses it, but, you know, it's still on Auto Judge.
Mhm.
So, just be careful. Like, to me, I would take a shot and stitch this.
I really like it. I think that's good.
Well, it's going to give you some dimension. I mean, it's going to be dimensional. Like, and you can see here, the way I crossed it also is going to cause some dimension, right? It's hard to see, but that's going to be over top. And that's going to be, over top here. So it's like it twisted in the wind.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's interesting. You just have to be careful. Like, a lot of times what works very well is, I'm just going to make a quick little square here, right? Take something like this, and let me get rid of my first one. Okay, I'll take something like this, and I'll go in and say, let's change this. Oh, that little recording thing keeps getting in the way. Let's go in and, let's make this, fluid contour or, spiral fill, right? And here's your spiral. We're going to worry about the motif. So, it's going to fill out this square in a spiral. Okay, so there's my spiral. Kind of cool, right? Then take it and say, you know what? Let's twist this baby around. And I'm going to pick that one and say, okay, and twist that over and twist this around. Because the density on this is not going to be heavy, right? Hit enter, and it says, hey, you're crossing stuff again. I'm just going to say, yeah, go for it.
Wow.
And, so now I might be a little dense in here, but it I only have 92. This is huge. I mean, bear in mind, this is huge, right? I only have 9,000 stitches in it, so I'm probably not going to be too dense. But, it's overlapping, right? It's overlapping in here. And it's going to overlap a little. I don't think it's really overlapping so much there. It might be. But, it's definitely... It has a lot of potential. You just have to be careful. It lengthens your stitches as well. Like when if you look, it's lengthened, right?
Okay.
And so you just have to be a little bit careful with it. And, to give you an idea,
Can you change the stitch length and the parameters somewhere?
You would have to do it before you went in. But this does not look like it's crazy long or crazy short. See, you can still see the pattern right there, right?
Right.
And then it's just trying to duplicate that pattern. Yeah, I don't think it would give you any problem on a stitch. Now, if I did that with a fill, I'd have some issues.
Save it and send it to us. Save it and send it to us.
It's big, just so you guys know.
No,
All right, save as.
Somebody, hey, I got a whole box of variegated thread today, Bernadette.
Oh, that would be cool and
That
variegated.
would be beautiful. Stitched it. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
it would.
It would be very, very pretty. All right, let me figure out where I can save this because I know I pulled the file. You know what? I'm just going to put it on just the hard drive, and I'm just going to save it as a gen and spiral. Oh, wait, I can't. I'm going to save it as a gen, but Shirley, you won't be able to open it.
Okay.
I'm going to save it as a gen, okay, and then I'm going to save it as, let me export it. What you could open the Jeff format, right?
Yes.
You can open Jeff. I know you can because you can open that. Okay. So I'll just save it as that. Let's get out of here and go over to where I saved the other one, which was down here and spiral. Okay. So I'll send you both those files. But I think it would stitch, but play with those, play with this. But picture making something like this and then or something like this. This is huge, right? The picture taking a circle and turning that circle into a spiral. And then,
the spiral.
take this and this one. And let me turn off these nodes. It's hard to see with that. And then begin pulling this in. Pulling that out, pulling these in. You just want to take the time, maybe make sure that those are even, and hitting enter. Oh, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Okay. See if I can reshape it again. Let's try this one, see if it'll do it. So I want to pull those in to form petals. I don't think it's going to do what I want it to do, but we'll just play with it like this. But picture taking something and making it, you know, something like this, which is going to be, wow, okay, won't do it with that one. Okay. Anyway, picture, you know, making something that you like the first one we did. You almost, I guess you almost have to overlap these to get it to do what you want. So we'll just overlap and twist it around. How's that?
I got to play with that.
Oh, you know what? Don't generate it. Lock it.
Now, what?
If I generate this, right, for some reason, the other one did fine, but this one, when I generate it, see what happens?
Huh.
So if I don't generate it and I keep it like this, because I like the shape and lock it, then I can't,
Yeah.
you know, mess it up, right? But I can say, you know what, save this as a building block, right? And, you know, and then pull it out, right? And, you know, so if you do something like that and you like it, then, you know, you've always got it, right? And you can change the color, I believe, without it affecting anything, maybe. Sometimes it's funny when it's like, no, it'll let me change the color without it reanimating this, right? But this one I think would be kind of interesting, too. Just, you know, you could almost make this into a fish.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, put a little eyeball on it and you're good to go, right? And so, but you know, you could just play with those all day. But if you do something that you put a whole lot of work into, you're definitely, you know, that you're going to use all the time, you know, save it, save your gen file. But sometimes saving it as a building block is just as effective because then you know where it is. Like, how many times have you saved something you put a lot of work into, and the next thing you know, you're scrounging your computer to figure out where you saved the file at?
Now, when you're saving it as a building block, are you generating or are you not generating?
Generally, I generate. Like, when I save it as a building block like this, it's locked. I locked it because when I unlock it and generate, then it tries to turn it back to some normal shape.
But when you lock it, can you generate it after you lock it?
No. Once
Okay.
I lock it, I can you know, do things like, you know, rotate it, change the color, but I can't generate it. That's the point of locking it. Like, I could go like this and say, you know, that looks more like a fish. And it's going to give me that message every single time. Every time I do something, it's going to, hey, you know, this is locked. And, you know, but once I lock it, every time I generate, see, there's no change to it.
Well, then how do you ever get to use it, to stitch it? I'm confused.
Okay, if I lock it and it's like this,
Right?
then I can, you know, stitch it just like this.
Oh, okay.
But on this shape, the other one, it didn't do that. The other one, it behaved itself. This one is trying to, you know, adjust it. And if I don't want to adjust it, I can just lock it and say, no, you can't adjust it. I can still stitch it. I just can't change it without it really changing.
And you locked it in the film strip?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just click on that little lock, and it won't let me do anything. It'll let me change the color, but it won't let me reshape it. Like, I can't come up here and say, oh, yeah, let me go ahead and reshape these points. It tells me, you're locked. You know, do you really want to continue this? You know, I'm going to say, yeah, let's go for it. But it did nothing, see? Did absolutely nothing. If I unlock it, that change I made would take effect, see?
Now, if you unlock it and it's you've already saved it as a building block, is the building block still there saved even if you're making changes to this?
Yep.
Okay.
Here's my blocks. Here's the one there's my saved building block right there.
Okay.
So it's still there. So even if I go in and decide to be daring with this one and say, okay, let's go for broke and let's unlock this baby and, oh yeah, let's try that reshape thing again and see what happens, right? Then, even doing something like this, and, see what happens when I generate. For some reason, this circle is trying to just adjust it. But, if I want to get brave and try it, sure, if I say, oops, that just didn't work, I can always come back down to my building block and pull it back up.
Okay.
Just so. But anyway, so I want you to play with that. You should already have the one image, right, that we worked on first. This little flower, right?
Yes.
So go ahead and play with that, or play with any piece of it. And you could take the vine from it and make a border. You could do anything you want. So play with that, turn it into a building block, and then I want you to get brave and, start playing with, that reshape a little bit if you want to. And start playing with, like this tool. Like you have to have multiple selected. Like this would not be a very pretty thing, but if you have two or more things selected, you can get to the super align. Okay, so play with that and see what you can come up with, either with your own building block or with one of the building blocks in the program, like we did when we made this. Okay.
So Zach, did you start with something that is a building block in generations for that one?
I did. I came over here to decorations and used this one.
That's beautiful. That is really nice.
You could use this. You could use any of them. Like you could do something like this, stagger, one solid one. You could even come in here and go like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do anything you want with the building blocks. You can use your own and go ahead and use that super align tool.
Where is the super align tool?
The super align tool is this little T.
Oh, okay.
It's only effective when you have one or more things selected.
Okay.
So, and, depending on what size you're going to make, it'll take you a couple of times to get something that you like. Like, how many of these do I really need, right? Plus you're going to want to color certain ones on. But, how many of these do I really need? Let's see. Do I want to make 20 of them, 10 of them, But the trick is, before you use that super align tool, if you have all these pieces, right, left click around them and select them. Make sure you align them. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and align them, via their I can't even think, their horizontal centers, right? And then I'm going to use this tool to space them evenly. See how they all spaced out even?
But where did you do that? Was that the super align?
No, not yet. That's all down here on this align toolbar, this horizontal spacing.
Okay.
Okay. So I use this one to align them horizontally first.
Mm-hmm.
Then I use this to space them so that they're all nice and even. And they're still all selected. So I go into super align down here now.
Okay.
And then I say, you know what? Do I want to put them on a line? Do I want to put them on an arc, freehand, or a circle or ellipse, right? And what happens is, it depends on how you place these. Like if I say, I really want to just put them on an arc and I want to center them on the line, what happens is this. I can draw my line anywhere. I can draw it any way I want, right? See how they align?
Wow.
And then this allows you to space them closer or further apart. And that's with them centered. If I don't like it, I can say, you know what, let's try above the line and see what happens. Oh, I need to pull them apart a little bit. And, you can go back in here and you can change this a million times below the line, see what it does. It's like your lettering when you space them on, a text path, right? Depends on where you put them as to how they actually line up, right? And even better, if I don't like this at all, I can go into edit and I can say, see where it says current arc? I can say, forget that, I'm going to make a whole new arc. And I now know that I want it to be between here and here and only that tall. And oh yeah, by the way, I want these to go on above the line or centered on the line. Okay. So, you know, you can do a million things with this. Like you could even take this at this point, right? Control C, Control V, flip it, bring it over, you know, because it's one entity at this point. And, you know, take a look at how you want to align these. Like, you know, you might have to, you know, get rid of one of these. But, you know, you also have this. Let me undo that. Hold on. That you can go like this. You don't have to flip it. You can come up here. And then you can, let me think, because there's a way to do this. I think I can go into Edit, take the line here, because it's actually a line. It won't let me do it. Okay. This is actually a line at this point, but it won't let me get to it like a line. Let's turn my stitches back on. But I can take this, and I can actually take these. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Get this arrow right here, and I can draw that whole line down. So see what I did with this? This controls your arc, but you can also turn it, you know, make it arc in a different direction. So does that make sense, what I did?
When you do it, I buy it all over.
Beautiful.
I'm sorry?
I said, when you do it, I would buy it all over.
You just have to play. That's why we haven't started like seriously making a design yet, because I want you to play. There's a whole lot of things in the program, and if you just play with one or two things at a time, then you're comfortable with them. But, you know, when you look at it as a whole program, it gets real overwhelming.
Just what you did before when you had the arc in the other direction and you had them spaced out pretty far. I thought, oh my word, what a lovely way to do a neckline on a t-shirt.
Yeah, all you have to do is
beautiful.
how big is the neckline and how deep is the arc.
Yeah.
That's all you have to know, and then you know that, like, you know, if you're measuring something out, right? You know, you can go to inches, but measure in centimeters. And if it says 25 centimeters, then you know it's 250 millimeters, right? And just click on this, come in here and resize, and X across is 250, right? And if you know that it's like 100 millimeters deep, okay, you know, you can change that and adjust it. It'll be bigger, but you can also do something else in this program, which there's a way to align on something that's already created. So if you know that your neckline is, you know, in the shape of a V, and from the shoulders it's this deep and this wide, right?
Right.
You can make that line and then put these on it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a whole lot of stuff to it. That's why I said, you know, play with this first and then get comfortable. And, you know, then we can do some other things, you know. I mean, then you'll be more comfortable, too. Because most of the time you're just afraid you're going to do something wrong.
Yeah, and what you were doing at that frame before was just stunning. I mean, really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it was just easy. And, you know, I have a little bit of an advantage. I kind of know what these all are. I mean, I literally made everything but the small letters in this program. So I kind of know what these are. You know, I know what I wanted to use them for, what I saw when I did them. But, you know, look at these. There's a lot of fun little things in here. And they started off as just a lot of times.
Oh, that's pretty.
Are you speaking?
Yeah, I said that was pretty.
Bernie, are you speaking?
I did speak. I said that last design is really pretty. I've never looked at it.
No, I said,
It's neat.
is Bernie speaking? I see all the stuff moving, but I don't hear anything.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Oh, it lost audio, it says.
It may be because of the clients.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just lost audio for some reason. I'm not sure why, but yeah, this one, like, you know, my point was this was made because I was testing something, and you know, and all of this is blanket stitch except these little French knots, right? And I was just doodling. It wasn't supposed to be included, but the programmers made a mistake and included it. And I think more people have commented on this little doodle, which is really what it was, than anything. So just play. You know, the worst thing that happens is you get something that's like, well, you just delete it, right? But that's the worst thing that happens. And, you know, just play with some of the features. You might be surprised at what you come up with. You guys still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm all nervous. The audio's going again. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And do you guys have any questions or anything?